Have you ever played something that barely explains anything to you and kills you in the first 10 minutes, and on top of that, drops you into a giant world without telling you exactly where to go? And even then, you still can't stop playing? Well, that is Elden Ring, because this game is weird. It is one of those games that at first makes you say, what the hell am I doing here? But after a few hours, you are already completely lost on the map, fighting enemies twice your size, or looking for a broken sword you saw on TikTok and telling yourself, one more death and I'm done, but 3 hours go by and you are still there. And the question is, why did Elden Ring hit so hard? Why did such a difficult, cryptic, and unfriendly game end up becoming one of the most important games of the last few years? Today we are going to talk about that, about its open world, the difficulty of its bosses, its hidden story, and why this game turns suffering into an addictive experience. My name is Alice, and welcome to my channel. The first thing you need to understand is that Elden Ring does not feel like the typical open-world game where the map looks like a shopping list. In many games, they fill your map with icons. The tower, the camp, the side mission, the chest, the repeated activity number 47. But Elden Ring does something different. It drops you into the lands between, and basically says, go figure it out yourself. And that is exactly what a lot of people love about it. The exploration feels natural. You see a castle in the distance and you say, I want to go there. You see a hidden cave and you enter just out of curiosity. You see a giant enemy walking on the horizon, and even though you know it can delete you from existence, you still go check what happens. And most of the time, the same thing happens. You get destroyed, but that is the point. Elden Ring turns curiosity into gameplay. You do not explore because the game put a yellow arrow on your screen. You explore because something caught your attention. A strange light, a statue, a tower, a huge tree, a sleeping dragon, a door you do not know how to open. And the crazy thing is that there is almost always something there. It could be a sword, a spell, a dungeon, an optional boss, a secret area, or simply a brutal view that makes you stop for a few seconds just to look at it. That is why so many people say its open world is special, because it does not feel like a checklist. It feels like an adventure. Now, one thing that makes Elden Ring very different from other Souls games is that even though it is still hard, it also gives you more freedom. In Dark Souls, a lot of the time you were more locked into specific paths. If a boss destroyed you, you had to keep trying, learn the patterns, or suffer until you finally beat it. In Elden Ring, if a boss completely destroys you, you can do something very simple: leave. And honestly, that sounds basic, but in this game, leaving is not cowardice. It is strategy. It is emotional intelligence. It is your character saying, you know what, maybe today is not the day I fight this 7-foot monster with my kitchen knife. And that changes everything. If Margit humiliates you at the beginning, that does not necessarily mean you are bad. It means maybe you arrived too early, with a weak weapon, with low health, without summons, or without fully understanding how combat works yet. Or maybe he just saw your confidence and took that personally. So the game tells you, without actually saying it, go explore, get stronger, and come back later. And when you come back, that is where the magic happens. Because before, that boss looked impossible. It was throwing combos, reading your mind, punishing you just for breathing. You press heal once, and he immediately becomes a professional athlete with a personal problem against you. But after exploring, upgrading your weapon, leveling up, and understanding the combat better, you come back and say, now we are talking, come here bitch, and when you finally beat it, it feels way too good. Elden Ring understands something very important. Difficulty does not work just because the game is unfair or because it kills you a lot. It works because every defeat teaches you something. You learn when to dodge, when to attack, when to heal, when to back away, and when to stop playing like a maniac. People talk a lot about Elden Ring's difficulty, but what really hooks you is the feeling of progress. It is not only your character leveling up, you level up as a player too. And sometimes, your biggest stat increase is simply learning not to panic roll like your controller owes you money. Now, let's talk about the bosses, because this is where Elden Ring goes completely crazy. The bosses in this game are basically events. They are not just enemies with more health. They have music, dramatic entrances, insane designs, impossible attacks, memorable lines, and a presence that makes you say, okay, this is serious. Margit, Godric, Renala, Radon, Morgott, Rykard, Malenia, Malekith, each one has something that stays in your head. And sometimes, what stays in your head is not even the lore. Sometimes it is just the trauma. And of course, not all of them are perfect. In fact, one of the most common criticisms is that Elden Ring reuses some bosses and enemies, especially in optional dungeons. There are also fights where the camera becomes your worst enemy, especially against huge creatures. Because yes, the boss is dangerous, but the real villain is the camera getting stuck inside a dragon's armpit. But when Elden Ring gets a main boss right, it gets it really right. Malenia, for example, became almost a symbol of the game, not only because of her difficulty, but because she represents that part of Elden Ring that forces you to actually learn. It is not enough to hit hard. You have to observe, adapt, and accept that you are probably going to die many times. Many, many times. The kind of many where you start recognizing the loading screen like it is a family member. And that, as weird as it sounds, is part of the charm, because in other games, losing feels annoying. In Elden Ring, losing feels like part of the training. It is like the game is telling you, I am going to destroy you, but I am also going to give you the tools so that one day you can destroy me. And when that happens, when you finally defeat that boss that had you stuck for hours, it does not feel like a normal victory. It feels personal, like you did not just beat a boss. You solved a life problem. Another thing that gets a lot of attention is the story. Because Elden Ring has a huge story, but it does not tell it like a movie. It does not give you 20 cutscenes explaining who everyone is, what happened, why it happened, and how you are supposed to feel. No, here the story is broken into pieces. It is in item descriptions, weird dialogues, statues, corpses, names, ruins, destroyed areas, and characters who often talk like you should already know everything. And at first, that can be confusing. Very confusing. Like you meet a character and they start talking about ancient gods, cursed bloodlines, cosmic forces, betrayal, destiny, and you are just standing there with a rusty sword thinking, bro, I was just looking for a checkpoint. But that is what makes it interesting. Elden Ring turns the lore into a mystery. You do not only play to progress, you play to understand what the hell happened in this world. Who was Marika? What is the Elden Ring really? Why are the demigods the way they are? What happened to Radon? What does it mean to be tarnished? Who is manipulating everything? And why does everyone speak like they are allergic to giving a direct answer? This is where the world feels so ancient, so broken, and so full of powerful families destroying each other. It has this fallen mythology vibe, like you arrived late to a war between gods and now only the ruins are left. And that is brutal for YouTube, because that is why there are so many videos explaining the lore. People do not just want to play Elden Ring, they want to understand it. Because after 80 hours, most players still have the same question. Wait, so who was the bad guy? Now here comes one of the most interesting parts. Before Elden Ring, FromSoftware games already had a strong community. Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, very loved games, but also games with a reputation for being difficult and not for everyone. But Elden Ring broke that barrier, because the open world made the Souls formula more accessible without making it easy. And listen, accessible does not mean simple. It means now you had more ways to solve problems. You can play with a giant sword, magic bleed builds, summons, shields, bows, broken builds, spirit ashes co-op, or simply farm levels until you feel more comfortable. Basically, Elden Ring looks at you and says, I will not make the boss easier, but I will let you become an absolute menace. And that was key. Elden Ring does not lower the difficulty in a traditional way, but it lets you find your own way to survive. Because many people who used to say, they don't play Souls games because they are too hard, entered Elden Ring because of the hype, the open world, the boss clips, the memes, the streams, and ended up completely hooked. One moment they were saying, nah, this game is not for me. And 2 weeks later, they were watching a 40-minute video titled, Best Bleed Build to Destroy Everything in Elden Ring. That is character development. That is what made Elden Ring feel bigger than just another hard game. It became a phenomenon. Now, we are not going to pretend everything is perfect. Elden Ring is not perfect. It has incredible things, but it also has details that can be very annoying. First, if you are the type of player who needs a clear story, marked objectives, and organized missions, Elden Ring can frustrate you, because this game will not tell you, go here, do this, and talk to this person. It will tell you something like, follow the forgotten shadow beneath the moon of destiny, and you are supposed to act like that is normal. Second, Some quests are way too cryptic. There are characters who move to random places on the map, and if you do not look up a guide, you can easily lose them forever. You talk to someone once, rest at a site of grace, and suddenly they have moved to the other side of the planet. No message, no GPS, no, hey bro, I moved. Nothing. Third, there is repetition in secondary bosses, catacombs, and certain enemies. Fourth, the camera sometimes becomes another boss, especially when you fight huge enemies or when you are in tight spaces. And fifth, the game does not always respect your time. There are moments where you can be lost for hours without knowing if you are actually progressing or just walking in circles. But here's the funny thing. Many of the things some people hate are the same things other people love. Because for part of the community, that lack of guidance is exactly what makes the game feel mysterious. That feeling of getting lost, of not knowing what is ahead, of discovering something you did not expect, that is part of Elden Ring's identity. So the question is not only if Elden Ring is good, the real question is Elden Ring for you? Because if you want a game that explains everything, marks every objective, and holds your hand, it will probably hit you the wrong way. But if you like exploring, experimenting, dying, learning, breaking builds, discovering secrets, and feeling like every victory cost you blood, sweat, and runes, then this game can hook you hard. Just remember, in Elden Ring, getting lost is not a mistake. It is content. The reason Elden Ring is so addictive is simple. It makes your achievements feel like they matter. When you find a secret area, you feel like you discovered it yourself. When you defeat a difficult boss, you feel like you earned it yourself. When you create a broken build, you feel like you broke the game yourself. When you understand a part of the lore, you feel like you found a piece of a giant puzzle. And that feeling is powerful. Many games give you rewards all the time. Experience, coins, skins, chests, animations, achievements. Elden Ring gives you rewards too, but its strongest reward is emotional. It is that feeling of, I actually did it. And that is what people remember. You do not remember Elden Ring only because of its graphics or its map. You remember it because of that boss that humiliated you 20 times, because of that underground area you found by accident, because of that dragon that appeared out of nowhere, because of that sword that changed your build, because of that moment where you looked at the Erd tree from far away and said, okay, this is way too epic. And also because of that random enemy that killed you when you had 40,000 runes. That memory stays forever. That is not gameplay anymore. That is emotional damage. So why was Elden Ring so important? Because it took the Souls formula and opened it to the world without losing its essence. It is still difficult, still mysterious, still dark, still cruel, but now it is also more free, bigger, and more personal. Elden Ring does not treat you like a tourist. It treats you like someone who has to survive. And that is why it works, because it does not say, look how epic I am. It drops you into a destroyed world, puts a sword in your hand, sends you against impossible monsters, and lets you discover the epic moments by yourself. And when you finally understand how to move through that world, when you no longer run away from everything, when you no longer panic with every boss, when you start playing with confidence, that is when Elden Ring stops being just difficult. It becomes an adventure that feels like yours. And that, to me, is the reason why so many people consider it a masterpiece. Not because it is easy, not because it explains everything, but because it gives you a world that feels dangerous, mysterious, and alive, and then says, good luck, which honestly is the most Elden Ring way to say welcome. But now I want to hear from you. Was Elden Ring a masterpiece, or did the internet gaslight all of us into enjoying pain? Which boss gave you the most emotional damage? Which area made you question your life choices? And be honest, how many times did Margit fold you like a lawn chair? Drop it in the comments. No judgment here, unless you say you beat Malenia first try. Then we are all judging you. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because more videos are coming. Bye-bye.